Hello everyone, welcome to the SchupSports Extravaganza. I'm your host Ethan, and I'm going to be going over our Week 1 Survivor League picks. Before we get into our picks for our Survivor League, we must establish what are the criteria in selecting which team we are going to take week by week. And there are three categories that I'm going to be going over today. The first one is intangibles. So how much better is their head coach versus the other team's head coach? How much better is the talent on the field? Is the team home or away? Generally, we want to stick with teams that are much better coached, playing at home unless there's a giant disparity between the road team and the home team. And simply, we always want to be going for the better teams. We don't want to be reaching for underdogs. That's just an easy way to get yourself out really quick. The second thing that we're going to look for is motivation. So we want to avoid matchups interdivision, because even if one team is better in the division than the other, then the motivation is still going to be there because they're rivals. And look back last year, week 1, Colts Jaguars. The Colts were a playoff team. The Jaguars obviously only won one game during the year, but it happened to be that one division game. The Jaguars were highly motivated to get up for it. Same thing with bye weeks, potential playoff status. We want to be going for matchups where both teams have equal motivation to win, or the better team has even higher motivation to win. And the third thing we're going to go for is fading the public. We don't want to be those guys that always picks the top team every week and follows what everyone else is doing. Because I'll tell you, that's the surest way that you won't separate yourself from everybody else. You want to go for maybe the second or third choice among the public, especially in a big pool. If you're in a pool of like 100 plus people and you know that it's probably going to come down to the final weeks, you want to be on the other end of a big upset. That way, you can catch up with your competition much quicker. So without further ado, I'm going to give you my 3 favorite Survivor picks for week 1, a couple others that you can use as options if you don't like any of the top 3, and one popular pick that I am avoiding for this week. First team that I'm going for is the 49ers on the road at Detroit. I mentioned in the intro, you should avoid taking road teams. You should always try to stick for home teams unless there's a big disparity between these two teams. And that disparity is very evident in this matchup. These are two non-divisional foes, and Detroit is clearly in a rebuilding year. Jared Goff is their new starting quarterback. He was very mediocre under Sean McVay. Imagine what he's going to be like not under Sean McVay. And simply the talent on this team is very bare bones, especially on defense. Now you look at the 49ers, they had a down year last year, but you should have seen all the injuries that they had. Mostert, Garoppolo, Kittle, and then most of their defense. Nick Bosa was out for the year. Dre Greenlaw had many injuries. Solomon Thomas, Richard Sherman, you name it. If you name a good player on the 49ers, they were probably hurt last year. Now this team, offensively, Jimmy Garoppolo isn't the greatest quarterback, but in a matchup like this, they're not going to need him to be the hero of the team. They can rely on the run game very steadily. The Lions have a porous run defense. What's even worse is their pass defense. They're going to be exposed in all areas, and Detroit's offense going up against this 49ers defense, I simply don't see how they're going to be able to move the ball. Not to mention, Swift is banged up, their most dynamic playmaker, and at wide receiver they have absolutely nothing. I just don't see the Lions coming anywhere close in this game. The 49ers, like I said, they're a good team. You can be able to use them throughout the week, so you don't have to use them here throughout the year. But in this situation, we're talking week 1, there's a lot of uncertainties. I think the 49ers could be one of those teams that you can be certain about. Speaking of teams to be certain about, the Tampa Bay Bucks at home against the Cowboys. It's a Thursday night game, home opener. Bucks have their Super Bowl ceremony. Of course, the Cowboys might be a little bit motivated after a down year last year, but it's not looking good, especially on the offensive line for the Cowboys. We already have Zach Martin, who's been ruled out with COVID. You have Lael Collins, who is dealing with an ankle injury, and he might not even be able to suit up. So that's 2 starting linemen on the same side of the line that might not be able to play. And you're talking this Bucs defense that's loaded everywhere, but especially on the defensive line and their pass rush. This could be a matchup nightmare. And the Cowboys defense, although they spent a high pick on Micah Parsons, they made a couple minor free agent acquisitions, particularly in the secondary. It's not going to make too much of a difference. This defense is still a mess. The Bucs will be able to move the ball around with efficiency. The problem and the reason why I'm not having Bucs first is obviously they're one of the best teams in the league. You could pretty much use them almost any week, and they will get you to the next week. The thing is, like I said, week 1 is full of uncertainty. We've only seen like a few preseason games, and the starters didn't play most of the snaps. What do we know? Well, what we do know is the Bucs brought back pretty much their entire Super Bowl winning roster. They're at home, and they're playing Dallas, whose quarterback, Dak Prescott, is coming off a major ankle injury. Who knows what he's going to look like week 1? I know one thing for a fact, rust is a real big deal. And then you count in the fact that the run game might not be affected because of the 2 linemen that may be missing for that game. One definitely will be missing. And it looks like an easy Bucs win for me. Now, if you're more confident in another option, I would definitely save the Bucs for later. But if you're not sure, go Bucs and figure out the rest later. All right, the number 3 option, the Los Angeles Rams at home on Sunday Night Football against the Chicago Bears. This is not the spot that I would like to use the Rams in because I think they're going to be one of the better teams in the league. Of course, they're very well coached, and this offense is high flying. They should have some easier matchups during the rest of the schedule. But as we said, what do we know? Well, without Justin Fields in the lineup, I'm fading this Bears team all the way, especially Andy Dalton starting. The Bears, they're good on defense, mediocre offense. There's just nothing really exciting about this team. And going on the road versus Los Angeles versus Matt Stafford, who's very familiar with the Bears and would definitely be motivated to beat that team. And the Rams are just loaded on both sides of the ball. And Sean McVay has never had a quarterback like Matt Stafford before. He's made Jared Goff into a star. Matt Stafford is already a star who was held back by bad coaching. The 2 of them together, I think, is going to make for a great season. I can see the Rams going for 13-4, 14-3 this season, and I just think this is a home matchup, not a division matchup. Under the lights of Sunday Night Football, I think the Rams will be highly motivated to come out here and beat the Bears. Now, looking at the other options, who else could we possibly take? Let's say you really like those 3 teams. You want to save a team for later. A dark horse pick as a survivor pick this week would be the Broncos on the road versus the Giants. I know this contradicts everything I've been saying before, but I see this line as Denver as a 3-point favorite on the road, and I honestly don't think that's high enough. I'm a big Giants fan myself. I've been following this team this whole offseason. This offense is a mess. Saquon Barkley is not going to get a full workload the first week. Kenny Galladay's hurt. Evan Ingram's banged up. Daniel Jones, is he going to make that leap? We don't know. But with this offensive line that they have, it's not looking good. And, of course, good on the Giants for trying to get some receivers for him to help him out. And, of course, this defense is very good. But at the same time, it doesn't seem like anything's going to change offensive-wise from last year. And then you look on the Broncos, of course, their weakest link is the quarterback position. But every other position, their receiving group, their line is not too bad. And I think their defense is going to be among the best in the NFL this season. And I think they're going to cause disruptions for the Giants. Now, would I necessarily take them as a survivor pick? No, not really. But if you want a dark horse, a week 1 shot in the dark kind of pick, the Broncos could be a good team to do it. And I would also advise that the Chiefs wouldn't be the worst pick. Now, I wouldn't necessarily want to take the Chiefs this week, especially against a good team like the Browns. But again, if you're uncertain, Andy Reid with extra time, if it's week 1 off a bye week or playing any few extra days of rest, Andy Reid's hard to bet against. That's not saying the Chiefs will have many better games to pick a survivor pick, but if you like them this week and you would rather say the other teams, I wouldn't say don't take them. Now, two teams that I would vie against picking this week. Number one is the Bills. Now, the Bills are a touchdown favorite over Steelers. It looks attractive. And besides the fact that you can use the Bills pretty much any other week this season, I think the Steelers are going into this season a little underrated. Their offense looked absolutely on fire in the preseason. Granted, they were playing the Lions, but the big key for me was seeing how Ben Roethlisberger threw the ball. He was throwing with zip that we haven't seen since he hurt his elbow a couple years ago. If he is back to his old self with these receivers and now adding Najee Harris, I think this Steeler team can easily go toe-to-toe with opponents like the Bills in terms of putting up points on the board. Now, their defense, they lost a couple key pieces and they're dealing with some injuries on that side, or people coming off injuries on that side, such as Devin Bush. I think the Bills should be the favorite, and I think the Bills should win, but as survivor pick, I would not be surprised to see the Steelers come out and win this game. Because remember, we talked about before the coaching matchups. Mike Tomlin is a fantastic coach. So is Sean McDermott. But there's no real advantage besides seeing what the Bills did last year. I would stay away. A more popular pick that I've been seeing is the Panthers over the Jets. I get the justification. You're not going to be able to use the Panthers as much as these other teams throughout the rest of the year. But I think we're overrating what the Panthers can do and how bad the Jets really are. Now, the Jets are, of course, they're breaking in a new quarterback, and they obviously just lost Carl Lawson for a season. Their defense still could be just as bad as last year's. But I wouldn't put that much faith in the Panthers without seeing a game from them and seeing how the offense looks with Sam Darnold. Of course, they got weapons, but remember how bad this defense was. I could see the Jets going toe-to-toe with points and maybe coming out with a surprise victory. And the other thing to know is I really like Robert Saleh. I think he's going to be a good coach in the league. Matt Rule, we've had 1 year of him as the coach. He's underwhelmed. Maybe just no strong feelings either way, but he's not a guy that I want to say, okay, we got one mediocre team versus one bad team. Matt Rule is my guy. He's the coach I want to be on the side. I'm not feeling that yet. Let's wait a few more weeks, see how the Panthers are. I would instantly regret using the Panthers as my first choice, especially with these other options we have.